Once you've opened up the level 2 tab, if you just scroll down to the English sample papers just over here. Today we're going to be working on English writing sample 1, which is new Superstore. So if we just click on this, it should open up the next tab. Often before getting to the screen where it shows the key code, it may ask you to allow or enable Flash Player. So please ensure that you have this installed on your PC prior to accessing this website. So from here, again, as I've mentioned previously, as it is only a sample paper, we do not need to enter any key code. We just press OK, and as well with your with the confirming the details. Again, as it is a sample paper, we just press confirm. As mentioned previously, when it comes to the real examinations, you will have a unique key code and unique candidate details, which you must confirm before pressing OK. So here we are on the writing sample paper tutorial for level 2. As you can see here, it gives you some background information about the exam. There's 2 questions in the writing paper. This is for every single examination for writing functional skills level 2. Time allowed is 1 hour and 20 minutes, which is the same in every exam paper. The total amount of marks is 50. So as I mentioned before, you are aiming for about 32 out of 50, which is 64%. This is the benchmark, as I said previously. But this can vary again depending on the difficulty of the exam. Um, Dictionaries, electronic grammar, and spell checkers are permitted in the exam if you bring them with you on the day. You may also use pen and paper for your rough work. I would say definitely if you need to plan your writing prior to writing your final draft, I would say please do that, because it's very important to have a clear structure of what you're going to write about and your ideas prior to writing. Otherwise, it can get very hard to formulate your ideas. From here, we're just going to click on Start Exam, and it should bring up the first question. So here we are with the scenario and the first question. So as we can see here, you'll be writing in this space over here. You always read the scenario first. You can also read the question here. Your task: write a formal letter to the council to persuade them to reconsider their decision. So you're from the task, you're not quite sure what to write about, so you must read the scenario. So you can formulate your ideas. Again, it helps you to formulate your ideas because it has a lot of relevant information to what you're going to write about. So here we can read: planning permission for large superstore help needed to overturn decision. Marlborough Council has granted planning permission for Madison's to build a large superstore on the outskirts of our village. This will have an impact on the recreational areas that include the skate park and Marlborough Woods. We need local residents to write to the local council objecting to this proposal and its obvious effects on the natural environment, recreational areas and village facilities. Act now. Write to Gloria Stevens, Planning Department, County Hall, Stanton Way, Marlborough, MB24AD. Together we can stop this madness. So here we can read the task again. Write a formal letter to the council to reconsider their decision. So what we can see from the scenario is that Marlborough Council has granted permission. So the local area of Marlborough has granted permission for Madison's, which I'm assuming is a large company which wants to build a large superstore on the outskirts of our village. So large, yeah. So it's a very small village, as we can see. We need local residents to write to the local council. So as we can read in that sentence, we are writing as a member of the local community, trying to persuade Madison's or the council, to reconsider their decision to build this large superstore. Okay. So firstly, we should structure the letter and then we'll go into planning what we're going to write about. So always in a letter, you must write two addresses, one for the sender's address and one for the recipient's address. So the sender's address will go on the top right hand corner, whilst the recipient's address will go on the left hand side. So here for the sender's address, you can make it up because it's not given here. Um, the recipient's address is given here, where we are sending the letter to, which is Gloria Stevens. So firstly, I'm just going to write um, the sender's address, which is myself. So I'm just going to make up an address. Firstly, I'm just going to write my name. And for the address, I'm just going to make it up. So I'll say, I can write the center's address. So 362 Essex Road, Islington, N13PD. Okay, so we've written the sender's address. So as you can see here, what I done was um, I used these three icons here to move the letter from left to right. So, the address, sorry, from left to right. So you can also do that when formulating your letter in the exam. So from here I just made a couple of spaces. Now I'm going to go back to the left hand side for the recipient's address. So it's given here, so you can just copy it how it is, how it's written in the scenario. So Gloria Stevens, Planning Department, County Hall, Stanton Way, Marbleton, MB2 4AD. So now we can start planning the letter. Um, so I would say you need 40 minutes. So as it's an hour and 20 minutes, that means if you calculate it, you should have 40 minutes for each question. I would say you could use 5 to 10 minutes for each question just to plan. That's more than enough time. Then you have half an hour to write each piece of writing. Again, it's only if you see here, the suggested word count is 250 to 300 words per question, and this is the case for all all of the tasks that you'll have in the writing exam for functional skills English. So and the word count is here at the bottom, so you know how much roughly you're writing. I would say if you go below 250, you may lack the amount of detail necessary to get a good grade. If going over 300, it's not too bad, but as long as you can manage your time effectively to finish both questions. Okay, so I'm going to just formulate some ideas and do a quick plan on the screen here for you from what we can gain. So from the scenario, you should be able to formulate some ideas. So I'll say 3 paragraphs should be enough to make up the word count and write a sufficient amount of information for the letter. So firstly, always in a letter, you should write what is the purpose of the letter. The purpose of the letter. So immediately the recipient should know what is the purpose of this letter. So that will be our first short paragraph. So as you can see here in the second paragraph in this scenario, this will have an impact on the recreational area that includes the skate park and Marlborough Woods. So we can formulate an idea of how the superstore will impact the recreational area and Marlborough Woods. So that can be our second paragraph. So 1, 2. Also, we need local residents' right to the council, objective to the proposal and its obvious effects on the natural environment, recreational areas, and village facilities. So also the village facilities, how will the village facilities be affected? let's just see if we've got all the relevant information. So skate park and Marlborough Woods. So it includes the skate park. And also the natural environment we've missed out here from the scenario. So now we've got our sort of structure. Also, if you'd like to write some bullet points quickly of what you're going to write about, so it's formulating some quick ideas here, you can also highlight some bullet points. As I said that before, you are allowed pen and paper, so you can write it on rough paper instead of doing it on the screen, and then you can get into writing your letter. So I'm going to start with writing the letter, so the purpose of this letter. So let's begin. So I am So you can use the scenario, you can look at the scenario to formulate your ideas. You can keep going back to it during when you're writing your letter. I'm just gonna have a look and see. So it's Madison's, who's been granted planning permission to build a large superstore on the outskirts of our village. So I'm writing in regards to the planning permission that has been granted by Marlborough Council for Madison's. Check the spelling of Madison's. No, double D instead of double S. So here we've written the purpose of the letter. So it says here, I am writing this letter in regards to the planning permission that has been granted by Marlborough Council for Madison's to build a large superstore on the outskirts of our village. Okay, so that's the purpose is pretty much done. If we need to add more later, we can add some more later on. I strongly object to this proposal. So here I've sort of gone into the first sentence of why we are objecting to this proposal. So I strongly object to this proposal because the building of the superstore will affect our recreational areas and Marlborough Woods. So we've sort of got used the scenario to begin writing why we object to the decision of the council. So let's we have to formulate some ideas. So the recreational areas, such as the skate park. So skate parks are normally used by the younger generation. So what we can say is how the planning permission. So there'll be less space for the youth to play, which may affect, say, their free time, and they may be using their free time in other means, such as criminal activities. This is one example of an idea that you can put. So I'm just going to write here. Firstly, so you always use words such as firstly, secondly, to begin your sentences and formulate your ideas and structure your writing well. Okay, so I've just separated this because it's quite a long paragraph, but I've sort of written about this recreation areas that will be affected. Firstly, the recreation of our skate park will be affected as the superstore will consume most of the space where the skate park is located. This is a beloved area for our youth where they socialize and spend most of their free time. If this is taken away from them, it could cause them to spend their time unproductively and possibly even undertaking. So I've made a little mistake here. Cause them to undertake criminal activities. Okay, this is just one example of an idea that you can use. As we can see here, I've already written quite a few words, 164, with just one idea. So as you can see, you don't need too many ideas to make the word count. Okay, so we've talked about the skate park, and now the Marlborough Woods we need to talk about. So, furthermore, the Marlborough Woods may be affected also because the large superstore will cause an increase in pollution. So, because the large superstore result in being which will affect the natural habitat for many. Okay, so I've also written about how the Marlborough Woods may be affected. So I've got a couple of ideas that I've written down. So furthermore, the Marlborough Woods may be affected also because the large superstore will result in our woods being cut down, which will affect the natural habitat for many of our animals. Moreover, our Marlborough Woods has been a tourist attraction for many years, so it impacts our reputation and the profits we can gain as a community from tourism. Okay, so that's two ideas of why the council should not allow the Madisons to build this large superstore on the outskirts of our village. So here we are, we've already written 225 words, which is quite a lot. So we can take this away now, as the second paragraph has been done. Okay, so we're nearly finished. Um, just the final paragraph that needs to be written. So how will the village facilities and the natural environment be affected? So lastly, the village facilities So in regards to the village facilities, as you're thinking about superstore, I've thought that possibly we can speak about the local shops that are owned by many of our local community. They may be affected because the large superstore will take a lot of the customers away from the community local community shops, and they'll be spending their time in the large superstore, and this will affect the profits and the livelihood of many of the local residents. So let's just have a little write of this. Let me just. So lastly, our village will be our local village shops will be So here we are. So lastly, our community will lose many of the customers in our local shops. Uh, this village is built upon family-owned grocery and clothing stores, and if the large superstore is built, this will have a detrimental effect. So I've used the word detrimental, which is quite an exaggerated word, because we are writing to persuade the council, so we have to use a lot of exaggerated language, but still remain formal in order to try and persuade the council. So they have a detrimental effect on their living standards because they'll lose many of their customers. So again, I've written information that is related to what we've used in this, what is written in the scenario. Also, so I've written about the village facility. Let's talk about natural environment. I also have to mention the pollution. So I've also talked about the natural environment. I did not have to really add this bit of information because I've already sort of made up the word count. But here I've just added a little point about uh, the natural environment that will be affected. So I've written, I also have to mention the pollution that will be caused by the increased amount of cars that will be driving into our village in order to access the superstore. Our village thrives on natural air, uh, and this will have a bad effect on the health of our local people. So I've written all of my points now, so in 3 paragraphs. So now I can just conclude this letter. So I plead that you are able to reconsider your decision and look forward to hearing your response. Kind, kind regards, or yours faithfully, Mandip Bansal. Okay, so we've completed our letter. As you can see, I've got the addresses on both sides. The sender's address, which is myself, and also the recipient's address, which is given in the scenario. I've introduced the letter, so the purpose of what I'm going to talk about. Um, I've included many ideas about the recreational areas, the village facilities, the effect on the Marlborough Woods. These are all given in the scenario, so I just made up some quick ideas related to the topic. Again, you don't have to pick anything specific. This can vary depending on what you want to talk about. Again, as long as it's related to the question in some way, um, then that's fine. Okay, so I'm just going to have a quick read to see if there's any spelling or grammar mistakes. I always plead that you please do have a read, always proofread your work. If you'd like to move on to the second question, then proofread both of your questions, that's up to you. But I'm just going to have a quick read of it to see if I can see any spelling or grammar mistakes. So say I can't see one at the moment. So say if I made a spelling mistake here, so with increased, and I'm not sure about it, I would have to read all of my writing and then see the spelling mistake and change it. If you're unsure about the spelling of a word, please do use the dictionary. Obviously, don't spend too long using a dictionary. because it may affect the time that you have in the exam, because it is limited. Um, but from what I can see, I haven't made any spelling or grammatical mistakes. But please do check this. Spend 2 or 3 minutes on each answer after you've finished, if you do have the time to check your grammar and your spelling, and also your punctuation as well. So any full stops, commas, capital letters that you've used, please check those as well. So I've written 321 words. Again, as I said before, it doesn't matter if you go too much over, as long as you're able to manage your time effectively to finish both the questions. So the first question is done. Now I'll move on to the second question.